They're getting together and they're going to celebrate. Some of the people that are going to be celebrating are going to be doing so for the first time in maybe 2 years. That's just really happy. But also, as we think about the holidays, we can talk about some anxiety as well. So first, we have Regence Director of Behavioral Health. That's Andre Michelli. And next, therapist and licensed professional counselor Joel Nielsen with Terry Reilly Health Services. So thank you so much for both being with us this afternoon, taking time out of your busy lives to sort of help us talk a little bit about mental health and happiness during the holidays. We are excited to get right into it. So I'll just start with my first question here. So the holidays, always a little stressful, could be a big one for people already dealing with depression or anxiety. So what kind of stressors or triggers might be out there looming, and how can we maybe plan and address for those? And maybe Andre, we'll start with you.
Sure. The holidays are stressful. Even good things can be stressful, and I think sometimes we don't take that into consideration. That even though we're getting together with family and stuff, and that's all good, but it's still a lot more than daily life. And if you're already suffering from depression or anxiety, the holiday situation can exacerbate that, because we're supposed to be happy, and if you don't feel that, it can compound the depression. So it's really important to, if you're already in some kind of treatment, in therapy, or taking any medication, make sure you continue that. The holidays is also a time we can blow stuff off because we get too busy, but it's really important to be consistent. And if you're not and start to feel that extra, something's not right, it's the perfect time to get in touch with somebody. There's nothing wrong with it. It doesn't mean you're messed up or screwed up. You're just normal and you're experiencing life, and we need to make it a priority to take care of ourselves at this already busy time.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We're just adding more and more to our plate. Joel, anything you want to add there?
No, yeah, I think that's great. There are pretty predictable stressors and triggers. I mean, we live in a highly commercialized society, right? These are just some of the notes that I have, but there's social pressure, there's money pressure, there's events, right, and planning. It's a high feeling type. The feelings are high during this season. Oftentimes there's a sense of loss of someone that we lost this year or a couple of years ago. These are all things that we can kind of recognize and be prepared for. And if we are, we can navigate it. Instead of being like a leaf in the wind with this pressure, we can more or less be like a sailboat.
You talk about money pressure. I think so much of that, when you think about how much the guilt of like, this is what my kids want, or this is what I should be doing. I feel like that's just something that you want to keep in check, and because it's it's supposed to be about family and friends, and yet a lot of us, we get off track very quickly with that.
Sure.
Then also the idea of memories, and like you were saying, it's a happy time, but the thought of maybe that brings you back to that certain time and that certain day, it can be pretty charged, I would imagine, for some people who've lost somebody over the holidays, or maybe you just got divorced, or things that are happening, and you feel, as you were saying, Andre, pressured to be happy at a time that maybe you're just not. To you, it's a normal weekend, right. But with the added,
holidays are a time, especially if it's the first holiday without, the first time I'm doing something without. And that's really tough. And I'll use a real life example. One of my staff last year, she lost her dad right before Thanksgiving. And so, or no, right after Thanksgiving, because Christmas was the first holiday. And so they decided to make it a party and a celebration of him. So took that, what could be a really sad day, and made it fun. So there are things you can do to work around it, but also just acknowledging this is going to be our first holiday without this person. It's going to be tough, but we'll get through it.
Yeah. And maybe, as to your point, like maybe you don't even know how you're going to feel. Like you think you're going to feel one way, and then the day comes, and maybe it washes over you, or maybe you're triggered by something that you think, oh, I didn't know I was going to feel that bad, and suddenly you're sitting around a lot of people potentially. So there's a lot of that. Moving on to my next question here. We've been talking a little bit about families, some of them being able to skip some of those charged discussions that sometimes we run into during the holidays because it's been apart. This year could be a little different. You might find yourself around the Thanksgiving table and you have to deal with that a little bit. What are some ways people can set boundaries? Is it maybe helpful to come up with some topics beforehand to avoid some of those potential pitfalls? And I can start with you, Andre.
Yeah, I think what you made me think of, we're going to try to cram 2 years worth of family conversation into one day. Could get a little crazy. I like the idea of setting boundaries and set limits, but inevitably, I'm sure someone will go off of it. And it's just a risk. I think it's okay to say, set structure during the time. If a conversation is going a way that you don't want it to go, it's okay to say, excuse me, I'm going to go take a walk. I think the theme for me through the holidays is make yourself the priority. Whatever you have to do, it's not being selfish. And other people, especially family, or, they may not like what you do, but you're not doing it to them, you're doing it for you. So whatever you have to do or not do during the time to keep yourself sane.
Yeah. How about you, Joel? Thoughts on that?
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think being able to indirectly set boundaries maybe ahead of time, and the holidays are, again, a time of high feelings, right? So to be able to manage expectations indirectly and maybe send a text ahead of time, so excited to get together and just have a fun, light time, gives assurance, right? And then during that, you may be able to set a boundary of, I'm just saying, I'm not going to talk about this topic. Or like Andre said, just being willing to walk away or say, we can steer the conversation just fine. We can accept that these things probably will come up and we can do something about it. So
yeah, as you're mentioning about the idea that someone's going to maybe inevitably decide that they're not going to stick to the topics on the card, right? That's maybe the whole personality of someone who's maybe not going to play by the rules in that way. So yeah, I like the idea of maybe bringing some walking shoes and just saying, okay, let's step away for a second. We should all play Pictionary.
Yeah, families are so interesting because inevitably you fall back into old patterns. You fall back into patterns like when you were a kid, the mom's being the mom. And, I've heard so many people say, well, I'm 30 years old. Why does she treat me like I'm 6? Well, we fall into that pattern no matter how hard we try not to. And so it's really easy to get caught up in, the discussion we had 5 years ago at Thanksgiving. And things.
Yeah, I like that idea, keeping things current, maybe, as much as possible. Okay, and then also, some people, like we've mentioned, they've been quarantining solo throughout the pandemic. Maybe they're a little hesitant about being around a lot of people. How can we ease them into the swing of things, maybe even outside of the family time, something as simple as, maybe shopping in person versus online, getting people back into stores. Thoughts on that, Andre?
I like setting small goals. If someone's uncomfortable, again, there's nothing right. We all have our own comfort level. And so there's no right or wrong. It's just who we are. It's normal. But set small goals. Like, don't say, I'm going to go from quarantining and I'm going to go to an NFL game, with 30,000 people. So set a little, like maybe I'll go to a library that there's some people, but it's quiet and I can kind of ease my way back into a public situation just to build that comfort level. I think if we set the bar too high, it increases the risk of not meeting it and then getting more discouraged. But if we can see small successes build up, we gain that confidence.
What do you think, Joel?
I like small goals and moral support, right? Being able to plan fun things, keep them like appropriate stepping stones, but doing it with others makes it easier. So it's definitely one thing that comes to mind. And just being able to maybe just set 1 or 2 things a week that are outside your norm that get you out. Just like Andre said, I agree with you.
Yeah, don't bombard yourself with 20 new things on the first day. It's a little.
what if someone is just struggling with the decision to see family at all? I mean, maybe you're getting the pressure, like, we really want to see you, but you're not ready for that moment. What are some maybe healthy ways to sort of think about that, make the best decision for yourself? What do you think, Joel? I'll start with you this time.
Sure. I would invite, I mean, I think every one of us has moments like this, and being able to take a second and reflect, well, what is it that's really in the way here? Is it fear about a past conflict? Each of us has the ability to kind of be the bridge, and the holidays are a great time. There was some research here that talked about the holidays are mostly seen as a happy time. Like more than 70% of the people feel that way, but accompanied with that is the stress, and that stress comes from, is it because of COVID at this point? Is it because of money? Is it because of distance and travel? What are the stressors? And then just kind of work through them one by one. Being able to manage expectations early with loved ones, if it has to do with relational things, could give everyone the assurance they need to be able to have a good holiday season and to just keep moving forward as friends, family, communities.
Yeah, maybe communicating a little to that to your family, like, hey, as much as you're ready to see me, I'm not ready quite yet. What would you say to that, Andre?
Yeah, I think it goes back to what I said earlier about taking care of yourself and having an honest conversation. It's nothing about you. This is me, and I have to follow my own comfort level. And in terms of just when we're anxious about something or nervous about something, I like to ask myself the question, well, what's the worst thing that could happen? And then plan for that. And it may or may not happen, but you're mentally prepared on how to deal with the situation. So again, it's taking care of your needs, but being able to be honest and open. And maybe it's talking one-on-one. Sometimes I don't want to talk to my whole family all at once, and that's okay. Just have a phone conversation with each of them individually.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's so important, the idea of just taking care of you and sort of seeing what you can do, whether it is financial, what it is, what you're ready to sort of embark on, whether it is travel or something like that. I know I've read some articles about the idea of a lot of people driving versus flying, just staying out of those busy airports and those crowded lines, and maybe it feels better to be in your own car and just taking that 10-hour drive instead, if you want to do that. Okay, so then if there are people who decide, hey, they're going to be staying home and they're going to be by themselves, that can be lonely, right? They made the decision for themselves, but it can still be a difficult time. So maybe some suggestions for someone who's dealing with those feelings of isolation yet again. Maybe this is going on several years now of sort of feeling a little bit isolated. What do you say to that, Joel?
Yeah, and Kristen, isn't it easier these days to do that, because we can be alone in our place, but constantly comparing ourselves to what we're seeing on social media. Yeah. And it makes it potentially more difficult. I think being able to have a clear vision of what we want out of the holidays helps, and then reaching out. Acceptance is a lot of it, and then doing what we can. Sometimes the reason we're isolated, there's lots of various reasons, but being able to find ways to create meaning and purpose in your season if you are isolated. And there's so many people that need you this holiday season. You might not know them yet. They might be in some service organization. You could get on, there's all sorts of websites. There's one called justserve.org. There's plenty of connections that could be made there. But creating the meaning and kind of forgetting yourself will get rid of feelings of isolation. It won't be so you focused, but
yeah, I like that too, because that's kind of what the holidays are about. You're supposed to be giving back, being part of your community, and yet so much we have like this vision of what it's supposed to look like, this like gathering of so many people, but that's just not the reality for a lot of us. And so you look at all the nonprofits in your area and the places that maybe they need that extra set of hands, helping serve others, and you make a friend just helping in your own community, potentially. So no, I really like that, Joel. What do you think, Andre?
I think that's great. I think volunteering at an organization or something going on in your community is also a good substitute if finances are an issue. instead of a gift giving, we're going to go volunteer as a family or as an individual, and I think in many ways that's more satisfying than giving a gift, because you're giving a gift to people you don't even know. So there are a lot of fun, free things you can do at the holidays that really, embellish the idea of the holidays. But if you are finding yourself alone and isolated, I think that who are the people that you feel most comfortable talking to? Maybe I can have some, if I can't travel, I'm going to be alone, maybe I can have some Zoom calls with people that I feel comfortable with and who I know are going to make me feel better. So you can be creative about it.
Yeah, I think that's so true. We always talk about social media, and it's this like big looming thing that was like it tends to skew negative. We're like, oh, we're going to compare each other, and you feel bad. But then at the same time, the very technology like Zoom that can actually make you feel better, as opposed to sitting there and being by yourself on Instagram, say, and feeling left out. And yeah, we're all talking here, and we didn't know each other, before today. But
Yeah.
You can do that as well. So that's pretty cool. Thoughts about resources that are available for those dealing with anxiety or depression, places that you think that maybe you would suggest. We could start with you, Joel.
Sure. Resources. Absolutely. There's one called makeitokay.org. What I love about it is there's so many interactive resources that help destigmatize mental health. It helps normalize it. And we all deal with this on one level or another and in different stages of our life. So being able to understand it, being gracious with us, being gracious with others, this is a great resource to help with that. JustServe.org was another one that I mentioned.
Yeah, I like that.
To connecting with the community. And I mean, some of the most memorable things with my family is when we've done certain things, like they remember it. Our kids are like, remember when we did that for this person? And they get all excited about it. It's like these sneaky little services. Psychology Today, if you need to reach out to a mental health professional, Psychology Today has a great resource, a great listing service there. And I think just talking to someone before you see things getting more over the top and overcoming you can overcome it. Reach out to someone, think about who you can trust, and that's maybe a good person to talk to, but then reach out. That might actually help them, you being vulnerable like that.
Yeah. What do you think, Andre, to piggyback off of that?
I think all those resources are great. There's also, community mental health centers. I'll make a plug for my own line of business, your insurance company, and people don't always realize that, if they need to, they can speak to a clinician. We have clinicians, and not just my company, all companies, that there are clinicians there that can talk to you and figure out a little bit about what you need and direct you, whether it's resources or your community or specific therapists, and get you connected right away. So that's kind of a one stop shopping for resources.
Yeah, and I mean, you see and hear so much about therapy online now, where you don't have to necessarily leave your house. I think that's so wonderful that has become more and more available, so that you can just sort of, like you're saying, Joel, instead of waiting for it to be a problem and then saying, oh my gosh, then you're just saying, hey, I'm already having those feelings of anxiety ahead of this. Let me get out in front of it and start talking to someone now that I trust, or maybe get introduced to a therapist now before you're in the midst of it all. I like that.
There are a lot of digital resources that insurance companies offer, and many do, that they have like kind of self-assessment tools. So if you're in the place that Joel described and you're not sure, there's really easy tools you can do online. Answer a few questions, and you can say, yeah, maybe it is time to do something, and be proactive about it. So you're right, Kristen, there's so much more available with technology now, and get to resources quicker.
Sure. One more thing, Kristen. Sometimes our anxiety and our depression isn't because something's wrong with our we're not handling something well emotionally or psychologically. Maybe it's biological, right? So really just leaning and getting things checked out, leaning on good resources. There are different community clinics. Here at Terry Reilly, we do dental, medical, and behavioral. There are a lot of clinics that have these resources. Go get things checked out if you're noticing things are becoming too much.
Yeah.
That's
a really good point. Yeah.
It's funny that, if we start to feel like pain in our knee, we're quick to go to a doctor. But if we start to feel pain in our heart, we don't treat it the same. And it's all medical, whether it's in your head or your foot, it's still medical.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I love the fact that we are destigmatizing that. And that's just part of health and wellness, head to toe, and then inside and out. I mean, the fact that, and there is a physical component to depression. There is all of that. It goes hand in hand. So I love that you mentioned that, Joel. I was also going to ask you, are there things people can add to their daily routine, maybe just to help them get through this time, that they can maybe just add? What do you think, Joel?
Absolutely. I would say, what does it look like already? Our day tomorrow is going to very much be our day tomorrow starts tonight, right? So getting back to that clear vision, we're not just a leaf in the wind being blown around. We are people that have the power to act, not just be acted upon. So I think planning is a big part. Absolutely. In the morning, being able to take a few minutes to look at our day and write a little paragraph on how we want things to go takes us there first. So when Uncle Bill shows up and says that joke or that political, he jumps into that political conversation, we've already decided in our minds through that journal entry of how we're going to respond, right? We're going to accept it and roll with it and then redirect or walk away. So journaling's a great resource. Just accepting and accepting the things that you can't control, I think, is half the battle. And you can do that through early morning preparation and then ending your day and focusing on the positive, like measuring your wins that way. That makes it huge.
Yeah, definitely like that idea of, sometimes people have told me, have like a little gratitude list before you go to bed, sort of go through the things that you are grateful for. Like you're saying, the things you can't control everything, but you can, think about those positives on the way to also having a good night's sleep. I know I have a kind of a crazy sleep schedule these days, but you're always going to feel pretty anxious and run down if you don't make that a priority. So again, the morning routine, to doing the same thing every night, I think really helps for me. What do you think, Andre?
I agree. And I think it's not just what we can add, but what we don't drop. Because that's during the holidays, especially, we tend to drop things we used to do, like working out or, the really self-care type things. We put things on the back burner. We try to cram too much. So it's maintaining that structure and being structured, because I think when we have a structure, it helps us feel more in control of the situation. As Joel alluded to, we can feel out of control with everything bombarding us and people pulling us in 1,000 directions. So having a plan and sticking to it, I'm not going to stop taking a walk in the morning. I'm not going to stop XYZ, and sticking to that, so that, because the end result is we're stopping doing things that we like to do, and B, we by the end of the month, holidays are over, we look back and be discouraged. Oh, I fell off the wagon, or I stopped doing this, and can be even more down on ourselves. So keeping up daily with the things that you like to do.
I love that. Thoughts on that, Joel? I
just really appreciate how you said that. How did you say that, Andre? It's not about picking stuff. It's not dropping things. And it's very much throughout the holiday. I think that's one of the most disruptive things to the pressure is the stability is interrupted. You've got kids that are going to bed later, right? the word no might actually be really
Yeah.
helpful this year.
I was just thinking the same thing. Learn to say, it's okay to say no. You can't say yes to everything. Then you say yes, then you feel bad and you try to get out of it. And that's even worse than saying no to begin with.
Yeah. Well, it is that sort of that shame and like just the spiral that you fall into very quickly, and you're just trying to spread yourself too thin, and then you're not really good for anyone, including yourself,
Right.
as you're trying to do so much. And I think that's the hardest part, is even just to say to people like, I just have too much on my plate right now. Just don't take it personally. And how many people are really gonna feel bad about that as long as you're open and communicating?
Yeah. I always use the airplane analogy of when the, air pressure's low and the oxygen mass drop down. They don't tell you to put it on someone else first. They tell you to put it on yourself first.
Yeah.
Because you're right. You're not going to be good. If you're worn down and grumpy and irritable, you're not going to take care of your kids well or yourself or get anything productive done.
Yeah, no, I like all of that. I love the idea of sticking to the routine and taking care of yourself. And realistically, I think managing expectations and just that acceptance of what the holidays, what we've turned them into and what they are in all reality. And, we're not, unless you're a kid and you're still wide eyed about the magic of what it's supposed to be. I mean, as an adult, it's like, all right, this is just another day. We're putting a lot of this on ourselves that we don't really need. And I know I have a family spread out all over the country, and that feeling of like, oh, you can't get to everyone. You just can't. And these days we live so far apart. We're not just all living in the same town where you just go over to grandma's house. Sometimes you just can't. You're like, can't make that flight. It's too expensive, all those things. But I so appreciate you guys helping us sort of break down the holidays and get some of these ideas started, starting to journal, starting to call a therapist that we might need ahead of time. Anything you want to say as we wrap things up? I'll start with you, Andre, and we'll just sort of close it out.
I would just thank you for the opportunity. And, I would just, again, reiterate, take care of yourself. Do one thing a day that's just for you. It could be 5 minutes, but that could do more than 5 hours of things that you don't want to do. So, put yourself first.
Thank you so much. Great. Nice to meet you. And thanks for joining us today. We really appreciate you taking time to do this. I'm sure you've helped a lot of people and will when they see this. And Joel, how about you?
The last thought that came to my mind, I'm excited to be able to share this because I'm grateful for my family, my wife, my kids, is the holidays, I think, generally can be a little harder on the women because meal prepping and decorating and scheduling events. And currently my wife's in grad school, and I wasn't very excited about that because I knew what it would require of me with our 4 kids.
4 kids.
But it's been an amazing opportunity for us because the kids are learning how to cook. I'm cooking more. The holidays don't have to be a burden if we will step up and others will hand off and we'll all come together. It's just more rich. So
I like that, making it more of a family affair. Like, hey, mom has a lot of things going on, or dad has a lot of things going on. We all have to sort of make it equally fun by working a little harder all together.
Absolutely.
I love it. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. Have a good holiday season.
Thank you.
I wish you no stress and no anxiety.
Take care.
Thank you. We'll see you next time. Farewell. Bye.